we're going to learn today is how to do what's called a shape tween. All right, and with all these concepts, I want to try to make some connections between what we've already learned. We've learned before that when we're animating in Animate or most programs, we establish a starting position, which could be something like this text, and then maybe an ending position, which would be, in this case, I just chose a flame, and I'm going to talk about some kind of clip art in Animate today. And the software will fill in that gap in between. All right. So today we're going to start off by learning how to do what's called a shape tween. All right. So, and if you're getting overwhelmed, just kind of think back, and that's why I'm trying to talk about that. You have a starting appearance, you have an ending appearance, and then we're going to have the software fill that in. All right. So let's start here. Let's make a new document in Animate, and we'll use our same presets that we did before. If you're still working on your walk sequences, I would save that and kind of shift gears a little bit so that you don't miss any of this new learning. I don't plan on going through the whole class, so there should be some time left at the end. All right, so new document, full HD as we've done before, and ActionScript 3.0 will allow us to have all the features that we need for filters and animation. All right, so we're going to create that. All right, let's start with just using the text tool. All right, so nice and simple. And I'd like you to type in the word shape tween. Full HD, ActionScript 3.0. All right, make sure you have a good color, something you can see, unlike my white here. Nope. I would make it kind of on the larger size because, you know, that's all that's really going to be in this scene. All right, so I'm just kind of formatting this a little bit. All right, so that's our first appearance. All right, and let's say at 2 seconds. All right, that's where we want our change to be made. So what can I put in this frame at 2 seconds that would act as a placeholder so that it wouldn't just be repeating my text, my initial keyframe? What other type of keyframe have we talked about using? Nobody? Blank, thank you. All right, so if we right click, we can say insert blank keyframe. All right, it looks like everything has kind of disappeared, but it didn't. It filled in all those frames up to that point with the same thing, and now we have this, kind of an empty frame, all right? So at 2 seconds, I put in an empty keyframe. Now we could find images online, but let's look and see what Animate has kind of built into it. So if you go up to your Assets tab on the top, all right, we should see a couple categories here, animated, static, or sound clips, all right? You can go, there's not too much in static. We can look, there's some backgrounds, which maybe we'll use for some stuff. We do have some characters. They're not moving though, right? Just keep that in mind. Where I found my flame was in the animated category, and then I went to props, all right? So I can take this flame, and you can kind of see down here, it's already animated, all right? But we're not going to use it animated. I guess we could kind of do something afterwards if we're creative with that. But let's just drag this onto our stage. All right, and it made a new layer for it. All right. So I want to see its position based on and center it to my text. What tool can I use so that I can see, yes, the onion skin. Good job, Brian. All right, so that's down here. I'm going to turn that on. And now I can see I can get my flame lined up to the center on there. All right, and it's relatively the same size. I might make it a little bit bigger. All right. Now, it's not animated right now, but if I double clicked it, we can see all the frames that made up that animation. All right, it's just a different couple shapes. Right, so remember we're seeing those movie clips. All right, but that's not important right now. What is important is that in order for this to animate from one frame to another, does anybody see a problem with our timeline? What might cause this to not animate? Are they on the same layer? No. So we want to get this frame here, all right, this black dot, which I know is a keyframe, right? We should be able to recognize that a black circle has some artwork in it. So I'm just going to drag this down onto the same layer. All right, so now I have my text, and I could hide this layer. I can delete this one because it's not necessary anymore. So I have my text going up to that point, and my onion skin is on, so I can kind of see that, but I would turn that off. And then it goes to that. All right, is everybody okay up to that point? All right, let me pause then. It appeared that you had your flame object was lasting a lot longer than mine. I'm guessing what you did was you had your playhead at the beginning here like this, and then you dragged it over. Yeah, because then it fills that whole thing. So what I was saying, if you did do that, to fix that, was we double left clicked. That selects like that whole range of frames. And then I just had you drag it over and down so it started after your text did. And then you kind of hovered over the edge and shortened it. All right, but so just be careful. Pay attention to where your playhead is. It does make a big difference as far as where things are being inserted on your timeline. All right, so now we are going to prepare the images so that they are actually shapes, because right now they're just objects. All right, so if I'm going to go back here and just grab my note here, which I would like you all to write this. Oops. So actually, let's make a new layer. And I'm going to paste this in. I'd like you to copy this text onto your document there, because this is going to give you a reminder of how you go about doing this. So to convert anything to a shape, we're going to select it. And then we go up to modify and break apart. And actually I'm going to add something to this because I think let's just talk about the concept here first, and I'll show you how to do that. And repeat, I'm going to say until we see dots, which are like, or pixels, I'll say, because that's probably a better way of putting that. So you can adjust this text box if you go into there. And then I'm going to add this in here. And actually, I'm going to have to make this box a little bigger to add this text, I think, to make it all fit. So that's converting it to a shape. And then to animate it, actually, let's do this first part here, right, before I go too far, right? So this first part is I'm going to select my text, as I'm saying, and then I go up to modify and break apart. So you can see the first time we do this, it's just separating the long string of text into individual letters, all right? But we want to keep repeating until we see these pixels. I know on my screen you may not be able to see it very well, but if you do it on yours, then that would you should be able to see little dots in there, right? So you're going to select that text and then modify and break apart. And then we're going to do the same thing for our graphic. All right, so I'm going to move my playhead, select the frame that has my flame in there, and then I'm going to do the same thing, modify, break apart. Again, it's separated into the two individual shapes. I break apart again, and now it's pixels. All right, so break apart your text and your graphic, whether it's a flame or a heart or whatever you chose, until you see those little dots. That is actually a shape. All right, and then, yes, select your text and then break that apart, and then select your flame and then break that apart. All right, so then to actually tween it, I'll say create animation. We're going to right click, and it's going to be anywhere in between the keyframes. Right? Again, we're using this word a lot. It's in between, right? Tweening. Right click any frame in between keyframes and select create classic tween. Alright, so this is overpowering. So let's make this a little bit bigger yet. Alright, so there is the concept there. Alright, and now we can see it in its application. Oh, I changed my text at the end. See, this is why keyframes, right, are really important. I should have been selecting on this first frame, because now what happened is my layer here, right, since I had this frame selected and I was typing, it thinks I wanted to change from one thing to another. So what I'm going to do here, hopefully you won't have to, is I'm just going to remove these frames which have the incorrect text. Now I can see that it is in the first one, and I can just fill this in. I'm going to say insert frame. Alright, but now getting back to what we're actually trying to do. So once we have our text as shapes, our graphic as shapes, I'm going to click any frame in between these two keyframes, right? Our black dots are our keyframes. So if I click any frame in here, I right click and I do create shape tween, voila. We can now see our text turning into a shape. Alright, I think there's what can be called done as far as some easing. If you wanted to kind of, I think, fine-tune this a little bit. Let me see if I can find that feature there. I thought there was a way you could do that. Alright, if you don't like the speed of it, you could select your shape tween, right? And then over here in your properties, you have some effects. So this is a classic ease. We can say ease out now. Yeah, there we go. So now if I rewind this, let's see if that looks any different there. And it keeps going back to that. Alright, I guess I shouldn't complicate this anymore, right? So that's the process for a shape tween, alright? Advertisement, alright, is our next project. So these things are going to require some of the parts to be in them and used as tools used in there. Alright, the next thing I was going to look at here is motion paths and camera animation. Alright, so on this scene, check out what I have happening here. This little duel here between this little stuffed guy and the ninja. But actually, that's not really motion paths. That is more of some animated characters. So we'll have a little fun, and then we'll actually, you know, we'll do the motion path first, and then we'll kind of point out those other things. All right. So on this file we're working on, let's make a new scene. All right. This shape tweening is just going to be in one. So if we press the plus on the bottom of our scene window, and maybe I'll even name my scenes. All right. So the first one was a shape tween. And my second scene is going to be motion paths. Alright, let's go back to our assets. We're going to use some stuff that's in here. I think the rocket ship is a kind of cool one to use. So under animated props objects, let's use the rocket ship. Alright, what we can see here is that if we press enter, it's just spinning in place, right? So, and this is a movie clip, right? As we talked about for our walk sequence. So if I double click it, you can see all the frames that went into this and layers, right? So if you were building your own type of movie clip, maybe this gives you an idea of kind of some of the things that you would have to put in there. And you can see all the different fins or different objects. You can imagine the amount of time it took to make this animation, right? But they have it there for us. So let's start off by creating a motion tween out of this. So just to make a basic motion tween, I'm just going to right click the object and say create motion tween. So that's our starting position. Then I'm going to move my playhead to the end, and let's move it up here. And I could use my transform tool to rotate it, but I think, oh yeah, it actually kind of follows that. So we can rotate it so that it has the spaceship or the rocket ship turning to the end. What's also cool that I don't think I talked about initially with our motion paths is that if you use the selection tool and you hover over the line, you have the ability to bend the path. So let's try to make like an arced path that follows through there. All right, we see that going like that. All right, and I'll come around and check that. But so just as like a reminder, I guess we would say. So for motion paths, select the movie clip, all right? I'll say object or movie clip, because if you don't have it as a movie clip, you can still do the same thing. And then we just right click it and select create motion tween. So if you forget how to do that from our clouds. So that kind of extends your timeline as soon as we right click and select that. And then we just have to finalize it, you would move playhead to the time where you want the change to be made, because it doesn't always have to be the end, all right, of the timeline. All right, so just remember, wherever your playhead is, that's going to determine, you know, you can make changes at any point along there. So move the playhead to the time you want the change to occur. And move the object. So again, we're establishing the starting position, we're establishing the ending position, and the software will go in there and it'll fill in the gaps. All right, and so that I think would be a good explanation of that. Maybe I'll just move this down so it's not in the way of my motion path. All right, so that's actually kind of cool, right? We could even, you know, we think about our walk sequence. Maybe we, you know, if we made a GIF out of this or a GIF, we could move it to start off or finish off the screen, right? And then as we see that, if it looped, it would kind of continue on from there. All right, so that would be a basic motion path. And if you missed it, arcing the path was just a matter of hovering over it. Am I on the right one here? I think I have to have the motion layer selected. So using the selection tool, and as I hover over the path, we get a curved line, which now you can use to modify and kind of bend that path. So it's not just a straight path. All right, so, and I think we'll stop there today. All right, so a custom motion path. Let's make one more scene. That way we're not like overwriting and filling up this with this one too much. So I'm going to say custom motion path is the name of my scene. All right, and we will start. We can take that same rocket, bring it onto our stage. And then, well, actually, maybe we first should have drawn a layer. Yeah, I don't think it should matter too much. All right, on another layer, I'm going to use the brush tool to draw a path. So you can do something like this. Maybe this rocket's going to be going crazy and crash back down. All right. So now on this layer, I'm going to try to remember, what do I have to do to make this? I'm going to say add classic motion, no, just guide, right? Yes. So I just right click on that layer, I select guide, and then I'm going to take this rocket ship, I will align it to the start point, and then I drag this layer into the top one. Nope, that didn't go. Let me make sure it works and I'll go back through it again, all right? So now I believe that should work. Oh, no, I didn't do my create motion tween, right? So if I just right click here and do, oh, classic tween. No. All right, what did I mess up with? All right, I guess I have to give it the ending position. There we go. So that fills that, and then I can rotate this so it's going down like that. I know this one is a little more involved, and will probably take a little more troubleshooting, but let's see if I get, yep, so that works there. So now it's following that, but it's not the right orientation really, right? So what I can do for that is go in here and in my properties, we can say orient to path. Just check that off. I think that'll work. So now if I play this, yeah, now it's turning as it's doing that. All right, so let me start over again. All right, if you didn't catch it the first time, I'm just going to delete my layers and start totally new. All right, so I'm going to start by going to my assets. I'm going to drag in the rocket ship. All right, so maybe it's starting here. Then I'm going to make a new layer. And I'm going to use the brush tool to kind of draw a path. You can be as crazy as you want about this. So I drew a path just with the brush tool. Then I right click that layer with the path on it and I say make it a guide. All right, so the icon on that layer turns into like a hammer. All right, then I want to kind of get my rocket here into position. So I'm going to rotate it. Actually, no, I'm going to keep it straight up and down because we're going to make it look like it's taking off. It's going to follow it, I believe. So the part here that you may have missed is we take this rocket layer and we drag it into your drawing layer. All right, it should kind of, I know it's hard to see, but there's a little line that pops up underneath of it. And then it turns this layer, it looks like a spring or like a, what are those old toys that used to go down the stairs? The slinky. It looks like a slinky at the beginning. All right, so we haven't really though, so that's just aligning it and saying, all right, we want to follow that path, but now we have to create our motion tween or our classic tween. And then in the last frame, we can go and move the rocket to where we want it to be. So that should make it follow the path. And then to get it to turn, we go into properties and we check off, if we just select in this range here, orient to path. And now, let's see if that looks somewhat good. All right, kind of a crazy path, but that does it. Okay. All right, so these would be some directions on how to create that custom path. I'll put this in the notes also. All right, but as we see then, when we do our final testing, Control Enter. All right, probably the wrong screen selected. So we see our shape tween. We have our motion path, simple, and then our custom path. And it's nice that those paths do disappear afterwards.